which the president had staked his administration.
What we heard tonight at the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue was the sound of gridlock breaking.
It's what the White House would like to have one believe. Bill Clinton as the comeback kid with his presidency back on track. But not everyone agrees, and some even think his troubles are just beginning.
The narrowness of his success in the House and in the Senate on this bill will mean that you're not going to see senators and congressmen once again willing to stick their necks out.
And the president needs them to.
At the end, there's a whole lot more work to be done.
A lot of work. Healthcare reform due out later this year, if anything, more divisive than the budget. The North America Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA. Many Democrats oppose it, so Clinton needs Republican support so far denied him. Welfare reform, another tough issue. In all, the president needs the Congress, and that's the problem.
They don't like him particularly, they don't respect him, and they don't fear him. Most importantly, they don't fear him. And as a result, they're making life very difficult for him.
Look at Senator David Barron, a member of the president's own party.
Why continue to play a game and try to convince the American people that, oh, if we just raise more taxes...
In part, to win him over, the White House dropped the broad-based BTU energy tax central to the president's original plan. But Barron is from the oil patch, Oklahoma, and thumbed his nose at the president and voted against him anyway. Republican Phil Gramm of Texas.
This tax bill is a one-way ticket to a recession.
One of the Senate's loudest critics of the Clinton plan for not cutting government spending, Graham is himself an unabashed champion of spending on the $11 billion super collider atom smasher because it provides thousands of jobs for his constituents.
This institutionalized delay and gridlock is bad for America.
Held back by a balky Congress and frustrated by a public that disbelieves his claims 80% of new taxes fall on the wealthy, not the middle class.
80%.
The president, say friends, must capitalize now on his narrow victory by doing what he did in the campaign, relating his agenda to a vision of change.
He needs to talk about why NAFTA. He needs to talk about health care. He needs to talk about jobs. And he's got to fit it all in this mosaic, in this picture, this vision about what he thinks, where he thinks the country ought to be. If he can't do that, then the budget victory is a very shallow victory.
It's what Bob Kerrey said, the senator whose crucial holdout vote turned the tide. He blasted the president for appeasing Congress instead of leading it and sticking with the hard economic choices that were in the original Clinton plan.
You have gotten where you are today because you are strong, not because you are weak. Get back on the high road, Mr. President, where you are at your best.
And Kerry repeated this at home in Nebraska this weekend.
Me is I was frankly concerned that we were going to stay down on that low road. I think the
it's a measure of the skeptical mood of the electorate that Kerry's eloquence seemed to fall flat, even among his own constituents.
I don't like to be manipulated. I don't like people who manipulate.
He was just trying to use it to maneuver for whatever advantage he could get out of it.
He won't get reelected in this state. No way.
It's this public cynicism about government that makes Bill Clinton's job harder and unnerves members of Congress, too, as they scatter home now for their summer recess to test the mood of the voters. David?
Jack, thank you. Coming next, Senator Dianne Feinstein, Democrat of California, who voted for the Clinton economic program, and Senator Kay Bailey Hutchinson, Republican of Texas, who voted against it. And shortly, Vice President Al Gore. In a moment.
Okay, folks, shaping up to be quite a morning. Everything's backed up. Looking east of interchange, we've got an overturned tractor trailer causing major rubbernecking and delays. Heading into downtown, which, well, you might as well just put it in park.
Bit by bit.
The Xerox guarantee is no ordinary guarantee.
I said, show me. And he did.
It says Xerox will replace any product for any reason at your request for 3 years.
It all depends on execution.
It's about a relationship that makes your satisfaction the measure of everything we do. It's the words we live by, and it's from Xerox.
They mean what they say.
Faxing, copying, printing. Xerox, the document company.
In
15 cities and 10 countries across the Pacific. They're playing our song. United Airlines. Come fly the airline that's uniting the world. Come fly the friendly skies.
First. And I'm a nurse first, and I'm an Aetna employee second. The care is first. You know, is that patient being handled appropriately? I would hope that we would all care about patients the way we would ourselves or our own family members. And that's the way I see it. That, you know, that's my job.
Dr. Markson, please report to OR room 5. Dr. Markson, OR room 5.
It's us and them. Prime time. Meat packers that could make you sick. Schools out of control, captured undercover. Welfare cheats tell all.
Absolutely, I'm lying to them.
Boys under the hood, busted. Sawyer, Donaldson, us and them. Prime time, Thursdays.
Senator Feinstein and Senator Hutchinson, thank you both for coming in today. We're pleased to have you.
Thank you.
Here in the studio in Washington are Cokie Roberts and Sam Donaldson. George Will being off on vacation today. I think he's fly fishing somewhere, isn't he? Anyway, we are glad to have you. Now, Senator Feinstein, is this bill going to do anything for your state, which has severe economic problems of its own? Is it going to help you?
I think the economic incentive part of it can help us if people will use it. The reduction in capital gains through the targeted capital gains, the permanency of research and development tax credits, the affordable housing. I think what the administration ought to do is have a California strategy that's based on housing, using the extension of those credits, a major transportation initiative that would build that rail spine that we need right down the center of the state, produce jobs, targeted defense facilities accounting center, the wind tunnel. We need to move ahead with the FA-18, the CDEF, and so on, but specific initiatives that produce jobs. Then the state will begin to move.
All of that is in the future. What does the bill do for you now? It takes effect, I think, next week. In fact, some of it took effect in January.
Well, let me tell you
if they get away with that.
What the bill will do for us right now is, and let me say with the income tax provisions of the bill, about 2.8% of the 13 million taxpayers are affected. The Social Security provisions, 13% affected by it. The gas tax, of course, if you drive a car, you're affected by it.
That's 100%, isn't it?
That's correct. That's correct. But let me tell you, as one who had a lot of calls on the tax provisions, on the gas tax provisions, and thousands of letters. I had exactly 15 letters. I think people believe that if a plan hits fairly, they're willing to do their fair share. Let me just say what I think has to happen, David. And
well, let me interrupt a moment because I want to go to Senator Hutchinson, who's sitting there listening to you and perhaps listening to me, though I doubt it. Senator Hutchinson, you voted against this bill. Why?
This is going to hurt the people of this country, and it's going to hurt the economic recovery that we do have going. Small business people who create the jobs in this country will be hit. Social Security recipients in my state, it's going to cost $196 million more just from Social Security recipients that earn $34,000 or $44,000 a year. The gas tax is not just a tax at the pump. It's a tax that increases the cost of everything we buy, every tube of toothpaste, every gallon of milk, every pair of shorts. It is just a tax that we don't need. We have a sick economy, and now we're bleeding it. That's the old remedy that didn't work. I think it is bad, and I'm very concerned about it.
But Senator Hutchinson, clearly part of the reason the economy is sick is the size of the federal deficit, and not one Republican voted in either house for this package. Is there a sense of irresponsibility here that Republicans are just not willing to do anything about the federal deficit?
The Republicans tried to get into the process, Koki. We tried to get in the conference committees. We were not included. The president made a strategic decision to go away from the Republicans and sit down and try to get all his votes from the Democrats. The Republicans offered plans in the House and the Senate. They were spending reduction plans. They were prioritizing government spending plans. I myself offered an amendment to this bill that would cut the administrative costs of government 5% for the next 2 years for a total of 10%. It wouldn't have even covered programs, but it would have given us more than half of what we need in spending cuts to bring this deficit down in 5 years. This is a bad plan, but the goal is correct. Now, what we ought to be doing is looking at the spending priorities.
But one of the biggest items in the budget in terms of spending is something that you support, the Super Collider superconductor.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what I'm talking about in prioritizing spending. What we've got to do now is look at what we are going to do to provide a technology base in the future that is going to give us the growth in jobs that we have. The Super Collider research is going to give us markets by the year 2020 of $200 billion. If we don't make investments like that, we are going to stagnate in this country and we will never have the jobs. The superconducting technology will keep cities from having to build entire power plants just for peak load capacity.
But every senator has something like that he or she wants to have for his or her state. I mean, how do you ever cut that way?
Well, first of all, let me tell you that Texas is an exporter of money on the Super Collider. Texans have invested $500 million. They have $300 million in contracts. Dianne's state, California, has $200 million in contracts. 100 universities all over this country have the ability to send their students in and learn the technology so that they can have the jobs in their states. You're talking about a difference in priorities of building one swimming pool or one warming hut versus an investment that will create jobs and technology in the future. That's very different priorities.
Senator Feinstein, may I just ask you?
Could I say something about the bill, because so much has been concentrated, and the Republicans have been very successful in saying that this is a spending bill. What this bill does, essentially, is for the first time in history take a major bite out of the deficit. I don't doubt that for 1 minute. I've talked with enough economists who have said to me, it is very important to show that the Congress has the will to do what has to be done.
Well, Senator Feinstein, may I just break in here?
And that has been,
I want to continue this theme that you've just introduced. I am unclear as to what the President and the Democratic leadership has promised for this fall in the way of new cuts. I know that they promised something in order to get the votes, particularly in the House. But is it your understanding that President Clinton and the Democratic leadership has promised that there will be a bill this fall that will be voted on, rescission or otherwise, for new cuts? Or have they simply promised that they'll make a good faith effort to try?
No, I happened to be on the plane yesterday afternoon with Leon Panetta, who said in October the administration plans to present the Congress with a bill which will have rescissions in it. And I am strongly of the belief that that bill should come. I think it will be a major failure if it does not.
Well,
and in that bill, that there be at least a 3% cut across the board, if not more than that, for this fiscal year.
Well, is it your understanding that the rescissions will be in entitlements, a major, when you say a 3% cut, or will they simply come back and say, now about the honeybee subsidy, we really mean it, we want it cut out?
I think it will be both, but I think the entitlement cuts that you will see, specifically Medicare, because, you know, the Medicare Trust Fund is going to be bankrupt within the decade. The health care reform will contain the big Medicare, Medicaid entitlement changes. Let me say one thing that I think, that as I listened to the debate, and I tried to listen to it, that if the President is listening, that I think is most important. He has to put together a bipartisan nucleus. And if he can't do it through the leadership, my very strong recommendation is that he do it through the non-leadership of both houses. There needs to be a working majority of Republicans and Democrats.
Let's put that question to Senator Hutchinson, who is not a member of the leadership on the Republican side. Senator, what will it take to get the Republicans to sign on this fall to a true bipartisan effort to cut the budget?
Well, first of all, let me say that our leadership did try to be part of the process, and I agree with Senator Feinstein that this needs to be bipartisan. You can't exclude one party and try to govern this country. It's just not right.
Okay, what's your price?
I think that the Republicans will sit down at the table and we will talk about spending cuts. I'd like to have seen us do that in the first place without these tax increases. And I think that we can come to terms on spending cuts. I like across-the-board cuts because they allow an agency to establish its own priorities. You can do across-the-board cuts by combining jobs, by job sharing, by cutting back on the office rent, by cutting back on the travel schedule. All of those things could be combined for a 5% administrative cost of government, and it wouldn't be the kind of cost that is a MEDAX approach. And that would get us to the point that we really would make a deficit difference, and that is the goal. That's the President's goal, that's Bob Dole's goal, it's the Republican goal, and it's the Democrat goal.
Senator Feinstein, just quickly, are you saying here that the Democratic leadership is not willing to make a bipartisan deal?
Cokie, I don't know. I think there have been efforts, and those efforts have failed. I think what I have heard informally when I talk with my Republican colleagues is that they have felt locked out. Now, it is true that Senator Moynihan said to the ranking Republican, do you want to participate in the conference? And reportedly he said, not this time around. But the feeling among Republicans
Dianne, that's
that
not
runs...
True. That is not true.
That may be. This is what has been said. Now, I think that just this kind of thing has to be put aside. I think the President is the logical one to do it. And I think that if there is an effort made to develop Republican support, and that this effort, I think, should be obvious to everybody so that we know it has been made.
Let me say, I can't let that stand,
next.
Cokie. Please let me just say that Bob Dole asked the leadership if he could introduce amendments and if we would be able to work them out, and he was told no, that it would be a strictly party line vote. So please don't say that we didn't try to become part of the process. And I agree with Dianne Feinstein, though, that we need to go back to the drawing boards, let the bygones be bygones, and let's do sit down, because we can't run this country with just one party, or we're going to have to change the party in control.
Well, you were very successful in your special election recently in running against the President's program. Both of you are up for re-election next year. Senator Feinstein, we understand you were very nervous about voting for this program. Are you just looking for Republicans to give you some cover when you go into your re-election next year?
No, not at all. I'm very proud that we took the step that had to be taken to cut the budget deficit. That is done now. Now, there are other things that have to be done. The rescissions are part of it, and they will be done. I think overwhelmingly, there's a lot of misinformation out about this package, and I think overwhelmingly, when Californians recognize it, and when we're able to provide the kind of California strategy that's necessary to move this economy. See, unemployment in our state is not down, it is up. It's almost 10%.
Let me ask you about something Senator Dole said this morning. He said that the Republicans, or at least he will this fall, attempt to repeal the retroactivity on the high bracket taxes. Is that a non-starter as far as you're concerned?
No, not at all. It's not a non-starter. You know, if we took a 3% cut across the board, that's $13 billion. The retroactivity in this package is $10 billion. Clearly, it can be done. I know there's a bipartisan interest in doing it. I mentioned that in my floor remarks. I've talked to Democrats who want to do it, and I've talked to Republicans who want to do it.
Well, Senator Hutchinson,
and I think we ought to try and do it if we can.
Senator Hutchinson, if the Democrats do come forward with something like that, would that help clear the air as far as you're concerned for Republican participation?
It would take a big bite out of what we think is bad about this bill, because retroactivity is a break in a contract that we have with the people. And if we can go back and say this will not be retroactive and do spending cuts instead, absolutely. That is the kind of bipartisan effort that we should be working on. We've got to keep faith with the American people. They were promised in 1990. Taxes now, spending cuts later. The spending cuts never came, but the taxes did. We cannot let that happen, and I think the president, as Bob Dole said, he's the only president that taxes us before he was sworn into office, and the spending cuts come after he's out of office. And that's ridiculous. The American people see through that. They do not want business as usual, and that's just what this tax bill was. If we could come back in and take that retroactivity out, it would be one big step.
Senator Hutchinson and Senator Feinstein, thank you both. It's been a pleasure hearing your views. Wish you luck. Come again.
Thank you.
Coming next, the Vice President of the United States, Al Gore, in a moment.
Something is terribly wrong with these pictures, but you could look all day and not see it. The problem is carbon monoxide, an invisible, deadly pollutant emitted in auto exhaust. Fortunately, there's a way to help reduce these emissions. Ethanol, a renewable fuel derived from corn grown by the American farmer. And now, for the first time ever, the Clean Air Act requires ethanol and other oxygenated fuels to be used in 39 of the nation's most polluted cities during the winter months. When this program was tested in Denver in 1988, atmospheric levels of carbon monoxide dropped 8% in the first 2 months, and they're still dropping. No wonder it became a model for cleaning up the air in cities all over the country. The problem of carbon monoxide may be invisible, but the solution is becoming clearer every day.
This Week with David Brinkley will continue in a moment.
Monday, why it might be better to walk, not run your way to health.
Also, high-tech techniques in the courtroom. And Robert Downey Jr.
on Good Morning America, Monday.
A friendly smile, a warm hello, an extra hand when you're on the go. There's something special in the air.
Whether you're flying from Chicago on business or pleasure, one airline makes you feel like you're something special. American Airlines, taking you to more places around the world than any other airline. With over 12,000 local Chicago employees who believe you can mix business with pleasure.
It's a feeling everywhere, a special way to get you there.
It's a pleasure doing business with you, Chicago.
Eyewitness News, Monday morning at 11:30.
Vice President Gore, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me, David.
Happy to have you. You know everyone here.
Sure do.
Now, Lyndon Johnson was elected to the Senate with a margin, I believe, if I remember rightly, 24 votes, and he was known forever as Landslide Lyndon. What are we going to call you guys?
Well, the president thanked me for my help in creating the landslide in the Senate.
I heard that.
If one vote had changed in either the House or the Senate, the outcome would have been different. But personally, I was confident that the outcome would be as it was, because I think the country realizes deep down that we have to make changes. We've borrowed $1 billion every 24 hours for the last 12 years. And anything real that we do as a nation to change that is going to create controversy and is going to be difficult. But thanks to President Clinton's determination, we are changing. We're changing course. We're changing direction. We're going to start creating jobs and moving the economy in the right direction.
Well, it went down to the wire, and until the last few hours, you didn't know that Senator Kerry of Nebraska was going to vote with you, and had he not, the program would have died. Why was he, as you put it, it was so clearly necessary that everybody should support it. All parties, everybody. He didn't. Why not?
Well, I think that in the process of governing, a president has to work with the Congress to put together majority support for a package of changes that can pass. In the process, some people say, well, I'd like to see more in this direction, or I'd like to see more in this direction. And we would like to see changes also. But 80 to 90% of what the president proposed is in the final bill. There is the largest deficit reduction in history. There is a huge expansion of the earned income tax credit, which will make it possible for working families and 50 million Americans who are members of those working families to spend more money at the grocery store.
Low-income working families.
Pardon me?
Low-income working families.
Those with incomes below $27,000 per year. Low-income and low-middle income working families. We want to make sure that every family with a breadwinner working 40 hours a week is lifted above the poverty line. And in the process, that's going to contribute to economic expansion. 96% of all small businesses will get a tax cut under this plan, with also targeted capital gains cuts for small businesses that invest in the creation of new jobs. And it's going to help to keep long-term interest rates low so that we can have an economic recovery. It's the first step. We've got more to do, but finally we're now taking that first step on a new road.
Mr. Vice President, all of those arguments that you've just given didn't seem to carry much weight with your Democrats on the Hill. In the end, what you had to do was publicly say the presidency is on the line. And that was the argument. And what kind of deal is that when you've got Democrats who basically have to say, it's, you know, it's my president and I've got to vote for him, but I'm not crazy about this package?
Well, you know, when 90% of Democrats in the House and Senate support a bill, it's not considered all that newsworthy, and the attention is focused on the 10 or 15% who don't agree with it. And yet, the decision by the Republicans to stand on the sidelines and not give a single vote to help change the direction of this country.
How much of that was the fault of the administration?
Put all the pressure on Democrats alone.
How much of the lack of bipartisanship was a fault of the administration not at the beginning reaching out to the Republicans?
We did reach out, and there has been a major effort on the part of the Republican leadership to revise the history of the early days of this administration. During the transition and during the early months of the administration, we reached out repeatedly. We had repeated meetings. Pardon me?
They keep saying you did not.
I understand. That's why I say they're trying to revise that history.
Well,
I personally participated in that effort to reach out and asked a whole series of Republican leaders about the possibility of creating a bipartisan approach on some of the most difficult choices our country has to make. They indicated that they had been burned politically in the past, and they said privately and publicly, you're going to have to pass your economic plan with Democrats alone. We're not going to give you a single vote. Now, let me make one other point, because I think the important challenge now is to move forward, and in order to address the important challenges we face now, we have got to try and create a bipartisan approach. I was disappointed to hear Senator Dole say this morning that if he has his way, Republicans will not support spending cuts this fall. President Clinton is going to be introducing spending cuts. He's asked me to head up a task force on reinventing government to look at ways to change the way the government does business. And we're going to do that, and we're going to have a whole series of exciting proposals to cut overhead and to improve the quality of service and revolutionize the way government relates to people.
Does that include doing things like cutting entitlements, means testing the big fat programs in the government?
Well, one of the things, just to use one example, I'd like to take away the woolen mohair subsidy that Sam gets. We joked about it, but you know, that's $190 million per year that we spend for no good reason at all. And yet, for political purposes, people keep it in. I mean, I'm joking with you, Sam. I know that you'd like to see it eliminated, even though you benefit from it.
I've spoken repeatedly on this program about eliminating it, at least for people like me. Yeah. It should be means tested. I think all government programs should be means tested.
Well, why not eliminate that program altogether? We don't need that program. Let's cut it out. We're going to propose cutting out a lot of unnecessary spending.
Unlike Ross Perot, if you want me to give you a spending list, and I would not presume to do so unless asked, I'll be happy to do
You've already
a
done
list
it.
of cuts.
You've already done
Mr. Vice President, you want to reach out, or you said you have reached out. Senator Hutchinson told us earlier that one way to reach out was perhaps not turn your back on finding other revenue to replace the retroactivity for income taxes for the wealthy that is now contained in the bill. Do you think that's a non-starter for this fall?
Let me put that in perspective. All of the hoopla and waving of arms about retroactivity is all in behalf of the wealthiest 1% of people in this country. Those are the only people affected by retroactivity. There's no mention of the fact that the tax cuts for 96% of the small businesses in this country are also retroactive. There's no mention of the fact that 27 times just since World War II, or in this century, we've seen retroactive tax bills, many of them written by Republicans
fair, sir?
In the Finance Committee. I mean, this is, pardon me?
Do you think it's fair?
Well, the idea that anybody was surprised that in January a Clinton-Gore administration was going to ask the wealthiest 1% to pay higher tax rates is a little unusual because, you know, I saw stories on this network in December about wealthy people and CEOs shifting their income back into 1992 because they had been put on notice during the campaign.
I'm not talking about higher tax rates.
That the wealthiest 1% were going to pay higher taxes.
But the question is, when I said do you think it's fair, my main question is, this fall, if it comes up and Senator Dole brings it up, are you simply going to say no, or will you say let's see what we can do?
Well, I think as I said earlier, the point now is to move forward into the future.
I'm asking about that.
And to try to get bipartisan support for more spending cuts. We've now passed the economic plan. We're going to move forward. We're going to introduce cuts in overhead. We're going to present a national performance review. The President and I spent the last couple of days going over many of the details in this package as soon as the vote in the on the economic plan was over. Then we're going to have health care reform, which is going to be the major challenge.
Were these spending cuts going to be in the entitlements where the money is? That's where Willie Sutton would have gone after the money. Or will they be, as I say, we'll do away with the mohair subsidy?
I don't think we can take entitlements out of the equation. In fact, entitlements have been affected in the economic plan just passed, and they will be in the future.
You talk about 1% of the people, and
1.2%.
And all right, it's a tiny percentage. However, the polls are showing that 2/3 of the people believe that the middle class gets the hit in this tax bill. What have you done wrong? I mean, why has the administration been so unable to communicate that fact? It's clearly there's something missing here.
Well, now that the plan has passed, all of the people who have been subjected to this barrage of inaccurate and misleading charges by opponents of the plan are going to have an encounter with reality. There's going to be an opportunity to see exactly what the effect of this is. It increases income taxes only on the upper 1.2%. The gasoline tax, yes, is about $2.65 per month. But what do we get for that? What do we get for that?
Social Security taxes?
Nobody who currently pays income, nobody who doesn't pay income tax on Social Security receipts now will be affected by this.
Will have a higher rate.
When you talk about what do we get for that,
we get lower interest rates.
Isn't the likelihood that you don't get anything very tangible by 1994? I mean, interest rates may or may not go down. They might just not go up. It's the
long-term interest rates have already come down in anticipation of the plan. Tens of millions have been refinancing their home mortgages. A lot of people have monthly payments of $150 a month less because of the economic leadership of Bill Clinton. We saw the effects at the G7 Economic Summit in Tokyo. We're seeing interest rates come down in Germany.
I mean, why is the Democrats so nervous about voting for this then?
Pardon me?
Why are Democrats so nervous about voting for this then?
Very simply. Well, first, the vast majority did vote for it, and a narrow majority in both the House and the Senate vote. It's passed, after all. But the fact is, as I said earlier, after 12 years of clarion calls to do the easy wrong thing, 12 years of quadrupling the national debt, 12 years of borrowing $1 billion every 24 hours, anything our country does that's real to change that is going to be difficult because of President Clinton's determination and leadership and ability to work with the Congress. We have now made the tough decisions and taken the first important steps toward creating a much better economy in America.
Vice President, another subject. 4 American soldiers were blown up, killed this morning in Mogadishu, apparently by a landmine placed by the warlord Adid's forces. Will the United States be able to do anything about this?
It's a great tragedy, and our hearts go out to the families of those who were killed. We should not lose sight of the fact that the rest of the country, outside of the areas in Mogadishu where the violence has occurred, have seen a dramatic improvement with mass starvation prevented. We have also seen a drawdown of American forces from 24,000 to 4,000. Overall in that country, the situation is dramatically improved. We've still got a mission there, and we're going to continue.
There were strikes against Adid's headquarters by U.S. forces in the last 60 days, about 60 days ago. Will there be new ones now? Will these deaths simply be chalked up to the agonies of a situation, but not in any way
Well, you can be certain that we will be consulting with our allies. This is not an American operation. We're part of a multinational
there were American
force.
deaths, sir.
There certainly were, and there have been deaths in the forces of the other nations that are part of this coalition there. And after consulting with our allies, we will have an appropriate way to handle this situation. We're moving forward, and as I said earlier, overall in that country, the progress has been dramatic.
Mr. Vice President, thank you. Thanks very much for being with us.
David.
Thanks for coming. Coming next, our discussion here, and this week there is quite a lot to talk about, and joining us will be Jim Wooten of ABC News in a moment.
This is the hand that turned on the light, that lit up the desk where the idea was born for a quieter jet engine that flew the technician who works at the power plant, which produces its energy far more efficiently as it lights up the city and powers the hospital with its life-saving images, where Sam was found healthy, in time for the game, held under the lights and broadcast to millions by a communication system designed with precision and shipped by powerful locomotives that passed by a factory that helped build a car with advanced thermoplastics that sits in the drive at the home of Patricia, who went to the fridge and got a drink for her dad, who works in the room where he turns out the light as he puts his young daughter to bed.
Every day, GE technology touches the lives of just about everybody.
I'm a management consultant. I've got my current client files, which include an insurance company, an aerospace company. I've got my firm's business and strategic plan, a fax modem, my brochures, all my letters and correspondence, electronic mail, word processor, my schedule, dictionary, my calendar, speeches, org charts, presentations, calculator, letterhead, marketing plans, notes, reminders, plane fares, a clock.
Word on the street was they were a bad bet. An American institution, 3 days shy of extinction. Only one investment firm, Dean Witter, saw past the problems to the real value of the company. And a rumble was heard round Wall Street as the last American motorcycle company came roaring back to life with a listing on the New York Stock Exchange. From Main Street to Wall Street, at Dean Witter,
We measure success one investor at a time.
Hi, I'm Tim Allen, and I know it's hard to know what your kids are watching on TV. Now, ABC has a new service for parents, an 800 number that lets you know on which shows ABC is advising viewer discretion. The number is 1-800-213-6ABC. Use it often. It'll make TV better for your whole family.
Jim, nice to have you back.
Thank you. I'm in the George Will chair here. I don't have the right brain for it, but I'll do my best.
Well, we'll see how it turns out. Thank you. Glad you came. Now, we've heard two senators, one Republican and one Democrat, and one vice president discussing the president's new economic program, which got through Congress by one vote. What do we think about it, Kogi?
Well, I think that it's quite remarkable that he had to go through this to get his economic program through. I mean, this is what he was running on, after all, to fix the economy, to change America, all of that. And he had to go pleading and begging to the Democrats on Capitol Hill to get it passed.
Would you care, let me interrupt a second. Would you care to guess how much he had to give away to get those votes?
I mean,
how many miles of highway and this and that?
I mean, I know about $1 billion going to charity hospitals in a state near and dear to me. I think that there are all kinds of things like that that are in this bill.
He had to go begging to the Democrats and give a lot of stuff away. But I think it's interesting, and you mentioned it to the Vice President, that at the end, the plea to get those final votes was not this bill is a good bill or this bill is an adequate bill, but save the Clinton presidency. Even if the bill's bad, save the Clinton presidency. Well, you're not going to save the Clinton presidency that way. If the bill's bad, it should have gone down. I happen to think it, to parrot the phrase, it is a step in the right direction. But if this fall they don't reach out to the Republicans, and they're going to have to give some, it doesn't have to be the retroactivity, but they're going to have to give something. If they don't do that, they're going down in flames.
Well, shouldn't we consider the possibilities if President Bush had been reelected? What would have been happening along about now with a Bush budget reconciliation bill? Would it have been different? Certainly it would have. There would not have been higher taxes. I think, you know, he swore off taxes at all, so there'd be no revenue coming in.
He did that once, and it blew up in his face.
I think so, and he made a not dissimilar deal with Congress a few years ago, and his own party beat him about the head and shoulders mercilessly, and he finally said, gee, I'm sorry I was wrong. So he wouldn't have new revenue coming in the new budget. Given Congress inclinations these days, there would be no serious treatment of entitlements, which there is none in this budget.
Well,
so
Jim, that's an interesting exercise, but today we have a bill, will be signed this Tuesday, and it's going to govern, not what if would have.
Well, that's my point.
If we didn't have a 22nd Amendment, I think Ronald Reagan would have had a third term as president, but who cares?
Exactly, but that's my point. Isn't it a serious effort and a serious attempt to address a major problem?
I think it is a serious effort.
Perhaps not as serious, but he agreed to higher taxes in return for promises of spending cuts. We got the taxes. We did not get the spending cuts. Do you think we will this time?
Well, I think there's going to be a serious effort to make serious cuts in spending this fall.
But here's the problem this fall, David.
Bear you out, but
I know.
Here's the problem. Let's do away with the mohair subsidy. Let's do away with the honey subsidy and all of that this fall. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen,
that's right.
That's not going to get us there.
It doesn't get you there.
If they have a serious cut in entitlements this fall...
That's where all the money goes.
That's where all the money goes. But look what happens to the health care reform next year. You have to pay for it some way. If you've already drawn down the entitlements, and that money now is in a trust fund that cannot be used for new spending, where do you get the money to finance the health care system?
That's a big if.
Taxes, new taxes.
That's right.
And he can't do that.
I mean, how does that happen? How do
I don't know, you
how
tell
do you
me.
come in with this tax bill and then come back with another tax bill for health care? I don't see any way on earth that that can happen. But the truth is that I don't see how you get real spending cuts, because the truth is the American people don't want real spending cuts. I mean, where the money goes, we know. It goes to defense, interest on the debt, Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And all the rest of it, cut out the whole rest of the federal government, and you still have a deficit. And the problem is that people don't want to cut Social Security and Medicare, and they've discovered they don't much want to cut defense either, because it means jobs.
But they would like the government.
So what do we do, Kogi? Slide down into bankruptcy?
Well, I think that what you do...
But that's it. Our plan won't work, because it's easy enough to sit here and say, cut entitlements, cap spending, get into all of these programs. Coky's right. There is no political will yet to do it. And if you're going to tax the wealthy should pay more taxes.
But
I don't think many people oppose a higher tax rate on the wealthy. The complaint at the moment is the retroactivity. I mean, why not go back to January 1st, 1992?
That it takes money out of the economy and all the rest of it. But,
well, it doesn't take that much.
But the truth is
but you don't get you can't tax the wealthy enough if you took it all to close the gap.
So few rich people in this country.
And you know, I thought we were going to talk about, Bill Clinton was going to talk about shared sacrifice, which means the wealthy take a big hit. Fine, fair enough, Mr. Clinton. But the idea that he spread to the middle class that, but never from you, we can't ever get there if the middle class isn't hit somehow.
That's where all the money
I'm afraid of.
The money,
and that's what Congress is afraid of.
That's exactly what Congress is afraid of.
I mean, in effect, you have, I think the Vice President described the percentage as 1.2% paying most of this new revenue that's coming in. But as a matter of fact, the members of Congress who struggled with this vote, yay or nay, you know, half and half as it turned out, are very concerned with the perception of any new taxes, because over the past generation, taxes have become anathema.
Herb Kohl and Max Baucus, two senators, kept them from raising that gasoline tax from the 4.3. Had they been able to raise it, again, keep the taxes on the wealthy, they could have gone far toward closing the gap. And instead of $30 a year, it might have cost the average American motorist $35 a year. But they wouldn't do that. Well, if you're not going to do something like that,
that is one of the things
you're not ever going to...
Well, the BTU tax was much more equitable.
There was that question of every senator, every Democratic senator having a veto. And that did become just phenomenal. I mean, what you had, motherhood was the best experience for covering this bill. I mean, what you had was one senator, you know, kick his feet and turn blue and say, I have to have it my way. And then every other senator started kicking his feet and turn blue.
Everyone had, as you say, everyone had the power to kill the bill.
Look at Senator Kerry's performance. Apparently, he thinks this is a bad bill. I mean, I only judge him by his words. He thinks it's a bad bill. He decided at the end to vote to save the presidency. He did it publicly, and then he whipped the poor president during his little floor speech. I mean, quite effectively. Bob Dole couldn't have written a better speech, an anti-Clinton speech, than Bob Kerry did. But this is anarchy within the party.
Well, politics is a lot like golf. I mean, nobody ever said it was a fair kind of game.
No.
And I don't ever expect that we're going to see equity and fairness coming from that Senate floor or from the White House as they deal with this. But the fact of the matter is you have to ask a basic question, I think, of this bill. Is this serious? Is anybody serious about addressing the problems that most of us now agree are serious problems?
It begins an effort.